Welcome back, folks.
He's still doing it.
I haven't been able to get down to the southern part of the island yet. And that's where my new clapper is, Pete. So when I'm finally able to get back down there, I'll have the real thing. But until then, Pete and Jared and Nabil will just have to kind of put up with this. Welcome to the Rebel Edge. We talk about the 1 minute macro. We give you 4 stocks that we're watching that day, couple bits of unusual, and then some sports. Yeah. So let's dive right in, Pete, with the 1 minute macro, because that's all it's worth. You think all the folks that all day long today are just talking about macro are entertaining the audience, do you?
Yeah, I'm sure they're thrilled to hear all about. And you know, the biggest problem with going macro, John, is you can cover yourself up so easily. It's ridiculous. It's like, well, you know, if this happens, then this will happen. If that happens, then that will happen. Oh, that's great. Extremely helpful. But
what's that deal?
We lose a connection? Can we still roll with it or no?
Go ahead, Does.
Well, if we got technical issues, that's okay. We can do this another time, but if not, we can roll with it. Well, in a nutshell, what I would say, John, in a nutshell is this. Let's finish on the macro minute. So the macro minute, all it is, okay, where's the 10-year?
More time with it than that, Pete.
Yep.
It's all about the 10-year, folks.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about rum. And I don't mean the stuff we make down here in Puerto Rico, Pete. I mean, that's the new symbol for Rumble, which is a big competitor, of course, to YouTube. They have a lot less restrictions. They've just been purchased by a SPAC, a special purpose acquisition company. It's basically a way to backdoor into an IPO. You end up getting a publicly traded company quicker and without so much of the road show and all the rest that an IPO requires. But this one was trading down kind of hard, Pete.
Yeah. Well, and John, you've got some really smart people involved here. And that's always something that I think we, you know, when you're looking at some of these companies, it's like, what do you and I both look at when we're trying to break down any stock? We say, okay, starts at the very top. Who's the CEO, or who is the most influential? How are the fundamentals? We go through that whole thing. Do they have growth? That's kind of what we're looking at here with something like Rumble. I think we're looking at something where we do have some great people behind the scenes. They do give people an opportunity to kind of probably get a lot of growth, John, because people are excited not to be censored. I know that's shocking to you and I, but that's the way it is. So there's the YouTube crowd where, well, you know, well, we don't like this so much. We don't like that. Let's pull this. As opposed to what this is, which probably get a lot of growth, John, because whatever they people are excited not to be censored. I know that's shocking to you and I. To 17 bucks the way it is. An eye, John, and then all of a sudden so there's the YouTube crowd, 12% today. But given the fact that it was a huge jump yesterday, it kind of makes a lot of sense. As opposed to what this is, and I think that's what we're seeing in a name like Rumble today. People are excited.
Well, Pete, what about this one? CGNX. These guys are automation. So basically, you want to automate something on a manufacturing line or something like that. These guys are part of that. And they just gave positive guidance. There's not a lot of firms right now, Pete, willing to step out and give positive guidance. And instead, we've seen the reverse. A lot of firms that are saying, hey, we're worried about what's going on. But this one got a nice little bounce against a pretty ugly backdrop today. So we had to include this in our four stocks that we're watching today.
Yeah, and the automation side of this one, John, I think it's really interesting. And the fact that they say they're going to be able to accelerate their fulfillment, that is huge. It gives them the opportunity to do exactly what they do. They gave some great guidance. You look at the free cash flow here, that's really strong. When you look at a lot of the different aspects of where it is on a PE level, trading around 27, that doesn't seem so bad. So the balance sheet looks pretty good. And they're starting to forecast, hey, look, this automation of this whole world that they're going through is going very well. It's going to start to pick up even more with that acceleration. So it makes some sense, and it makes me want to look at it a little bit closer, John, because it's trading a lot closer to the 52-week lows than the 52-week highs.
Right. And I'm not necessarily talking robotics, folks, but when you talk about automation, you're also dealing with things that cut down on human interaction to a large degree, and thus the line becomes more profitable. And everybody's looking for that right now because their cost of human capital is going up, up, up. All right, Pete, speaking of up, take a look at these dry bulk carriers. I mean, SBLK, Eagle, and GMK all up today. Basically, there's a big conference in New York. And one of the things that Pete and I try to impart to you guys is not that it's not fair, but there are a lot of conferences that go on that none of us can attend. Or if we could attend, we can attend one per day or something like that. This means that there's people out there that have a lot more information than we do. Thus, a lot of the unusual activity we see is from that unusual bit of news that somebody was able to glean at an analyst conference or at a particular demonstration of a new product. So these, Pete, I think we all know what they do. They ship dry goods.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the shipping world is a very interesting one, right, John? I mean, whether or not you're moving commodities like crude and so forth, but with the dry bulk, these guys, I think, are getting a lot of attention because they're starting to build their fleets up a little bit. And that might be something that is giving us a little bit of insight, and it might help with the supply chain. Of course, we're always looking for that kind of thing. Eagle Bulk just made a huge acquisition, added to what they've got in terms of the carriers they've got. Now they've got 53, 90+% of them are these big, massive, brutal things that just push themselves around the world. But it's definitely another one of those interesting areas. And John, from a fundamental perspective, these are all relatively very inexpensive stocks. So it's not a huge stretch to say, you know what, maybe there's a little bit more, despite the fact that they're having a pretty decent day to day. Maybe there's a little bit more to come in the future because they are the ones that are going to change what's going on with the supply chain. And it sounds to me like with some of the acquisitions being made, they're going to be able to have enough of that to be able to make that bulk move across the world, across the planet, across the ocean.
Well, last, Pete, I wanted to wind up with this one. We've never, I don't think, spoken about SHC, but it's Sotera Health. And basically, one of the products that they make, Pete, something called Sterigenics. Apparently, some of the oxide emissions from that caused a lady to get breast cancer. And at least that's what the jury found. And they also found in her favor to the tune of about $360 million. Now, there's always going to be an appeal and so forth, and they'll try to, ratchet that jury verdict down. But wow, this is one of those things that can practically put a company like this out of business, Pete.
And John, I don't think they're that far away from that because this is just one suit, right? I mean, we're talking about $300+ million. And there are 700 or more of these out there floating around of folks that are having their own issues as well. Now, will they all go the same direction? We don't know that, but there certainly are quite a few out there. And this is something that this can cripple a company. There's no doubt about it. And maybe for the right reasons based upon, what this jury came up with today. Will that be the same in the future? We don't know. And they're still going to be able to argue against that, John. So it's not a slam dunk, but it certainly is something that I think that people are obviously very, very concerned for the future right now for Sotera. And I don't know. This is one of those where I would say, that's a no touch. I'll wait.
Yeah, I can be very patient in this one too, Pete.
Yeah.
There's certain stocks that I'll catch a falling knife, like FedEx. I did that last week on the big drop. I sold some puts, and we'll see how that works out. But this one, I don't want to touch this one for a bit.
Yeah.
As far as unusual activity, folks, we try to give you the best of what we've seen early in the day. And if you're somebody who only trades stocks, well, when we see bullish activity, you'd be a buyer of stock, I guess, in that company. Again, Pete and I don't make those. We're not an advisory, but we can tell you what we're doing. And in the case of LVS, this is Las Vegas Sands, and they were buying, whoever the anonymous they are, were buying 7,000 of the November 44 calls. Those are exactly 10% above where the market's trading, Pete. So if you follow into this one, they're looking for a decent rally over the next 2 months, perhaps even a big rally after that, because this goes until basically Thanksgiving, third Friday in November. And I bought the 40s though, Pete. I didn't buy the 44s. As I frequently do, I want to buy a lower strike, sell a higher strike against it 1-to-1.
Yep. And I always like that approach as well, John. But certainly they already had what we like to look at, you and I both, when you're looking at spreads and you're buying one, selling another. If you're paying $1 for that spread, which is about what they were doing, it gives you a room to have basically a multiple of 4 or 5, right? I mean, it gives you that room. And that's kind of what we're usually looking for to make that risk reward out of a trade. Here's another one, John. How about Lyft? Now, everybody talks about Uber all the time, and we, especially me, have been very, very critical of the fact that, is Uber going to make money? I mean, this has been a public company for a long time. And yes, once in a while, they'll actually maybe make money, but on a consistent basis, that ain't happening. Now you've got Lyft, right? They're direct competition. Well, Lyft is an interesting one because a lot of chatter out there, John. Doesn't mean there's anything behind it, but there is chatter out there about this being a candidate. Maybe it's a buyout. Who knows? But that's just the chatter we hear, and we're just talking about what we hear, and that's something not that John or Pete are talking about. We're talking about others in the world of this are talking about this. And you got Loop Capital out there with a $31 price target, John. Stock's trading 17, and then we've got a buyer today, 2 weeks out, 20,000 of the September 30th, 19.5 calls. They're going for 30 cents. So basically, they're saying in the next couple of weeks, they think that whoever that they is, they think this stock has a little bit of room to the upside. And by the way, they're selling 30,000 of this week's expiring 19s, going up to 19.5 with the 20,000 that are being bought. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. They want more time, and maybe time is the issue. Maybe there is something behind that. We won't know for a long time. I will add this. It's going to be, if it were, it's already a $6 billion market cap. Generally, they pay about 10 or 15, maybe 20%, John, when you're going to do a takeout. So that's going to be significant capital if somebody actually does jump on this as a trade.
Yeah, very true, Pete. I like Lyft. I like using them. I've found lately there aren't as many drivers on there as I see on Uber, at least in the cities that I travel to.
Yep.
But truly, it could be that somebody is taking a look at them, Pete. I doubt it's Uber, but it could be another competitor from overseas even that wants to expand their footprint in the U.S.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Pete, what do you got as far as sports today?
Well, I got a couple of them, and I know you're going to want to comment on these as well, John, because we're looking at, okay, how about Florida going to Tennessee? I wanted to talk about some of the best games, I think, of the weekend. So Florida's number 20, Tennessee's number 11. I don't know if everybody thought Tennessee's going to be as good as they actually are, but so far, John, they've started off very, very strong. Then you've got Arkansas. Believe it or not, Arkansas is number 10. I mean, when you look at how many SEC schools are ranked somewhere in the top 20, it's pretty staggering right now. And I'll tell you what, I actually think we're seeing more and more great athletes outside of the SEC, outside of the Big Ten. And I think that's why we've seen some of the upsets this year that we've seen. But they're going up against Texas A&M. Is Texas A&M going to be real? We don't really know the answer to that. And I got a third one. Any of these that you like, John, you tell me. But how about my Golden Gophers finally going on the road? And they're going to be going up to Michigan State, a team that went out and lost to Washington, a very difficult place to play. But they were number 11. Now they're out of the top 20 because of that loss. So they're getting punished for that loss, but they've gone on the road. They've had to go against adversity. and obviously a quality team in the Pac-12. The Gophers just beat probably the bottom of the barrel in the Pac-12 with Colorado. So it'll be interesting for the Gophers to go on the road to a tough environment, Michigan State. I like that game a lot, John, and I actually think the Gophers got a really good shot here.
Yeah, and Pete, I know they lost a receiver, the Gophers did, in the game against Colorado. So that hurts a little, maybe a lot. I don't know. We'll have to see Saturday. But boy, they do have the big steamrollers up front. So, you know, that offensive line at the University of Minnesota is about as big as any in college or pro football, Pete.
Well, and you add the tight end who's a 6'8", 275-pound kid, and then you add 4 running backs that can all run and could start almost anywhere in the country, any one of that 4, including number 4. So, it really is a pretty good team, and we'll have to see if the Gophers are going to be able to roll the way I think that they can. Originally, I thought they might lose this game, but after watching Michigan State last week, John, I think the Gophers actually got a much better shot on the road, but we're going to find out pretty quick. And I know we're not probably able to do the Rebels Edge on Thursday, so we're giving you our Saturday and weekend stuff right now. John, how about the Lions? I wanted to go there because we look at the NFL. You're only through 2 weeks, but are they maybe a sleeper? And when I say that, I'm not being joking. I think that there's something that they've done. I think the coach has done a lot with this team. They did a lot in the draft. I think Hutchinson has proved out why he was so highly rated going into the draft, maybe even being the first guy taken from the University of Michigan. He was the first guy taken by Detroit, I can tell you that. Very, very high pick. Great player. He's already showing it. And you know what? Goff is looking pretty good. He's only thrown 1 interception, got 6 touchdowns. They've got 2 running backs that can run the ball really, really well, DeAndre Swift being one of them. He's been pretty amazing. Am I buying in too much to what we've seen in the first 2 weeks, John, with the Lions?
No, I don't think so, Pete. I think you're right. And you had mentioned this one when we talked about, who's real and who's not real. You were dead on about Tennessee because, that Tennessee team looks like they just want to fold it up right now. It's early. I realize just a couple games in. But still, that Tennessee team is not looking sharp, Pete. And meanwhile, your Kitty Cats, that played a really tough Eagles team right to the end. Yep. They're looking pretty good. And by the way, Goff did not have a good game in that one. No. In the first one against the Eagles. He did okay, but in the second game, that's the one where I think he really put it down, Pete. And like you say, I think the NFL will be taking note of the Detroit Lions going into these next
Well,
few
it's
games.
just kind of fun that Detroit is relevant. That's what I everybody wants to dismiss them right out of the gate. Oh, it's the Lions, the Kitty Cats, whatever they want to call them. But you and I watched the Bears and the Packers. That was an interesting game for the Packers side. And the Vikings, after week 1, people here in Minnesota were saying, hey, you know what? We're Super Bowl bound. Now, all of a sudden, after last night when Philadelphia ran us off the field, everybody's like, God, I hate Kirk Cousins. Our new coach doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, it's funny how fast it flips in the NFL. But meanwhile, I look at the Kitty Cats, if you want to call them that, and they've got a lot of what you want in a team to have success. They've got a very aggressive defense. They've given up some yards, but they can run the football. And I think any team that can run the football well consistently, John, in the first 2 weeks, they've done a pretty good job. You can run the football, you got a shot to win a lot of games. Maybe at least 8 or 9, maybe. But you know what? It'd be sure interesting to see if the Lions can get into that sort of category where everybody's like, wow, these guys might actually be a playoff team.
Well, folks, as Pete has already hinted, we do not have Rebels Edge on Thursday because we will be in Dallas, Texas for RebelCon, the 21st through the 24th. I'm flying up this afternoon from Puerto Rico. Pete's coming down from, are you up in Minneapolis area, Pete?
Yep, I'm up in Minnesota, and that's where I get to listen to all these fans complain about last night's game. But yeah, so I'm going to be on a flight in a very short period of time to get down there to Dallas. It should be fun.
All right. Remember, folks, you can still join virtually. Go to marketrebellion.com/Dallas. That's marketrebellion.com/Dallas. And remember, no Rebels Edge this Thursday because we'll be broadcasting from down there. to the thousands of you that'll be there virtually and all the folks that'll be there in person. Have a great one. We'll see you Monday.
See ya.